Hello and welcome to the Elemocenary Moment After Dark. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm RFK Jr. Brad Hathcock. Welcome to the debate edition that we have been promising.
We here at the Elemocenary Moment have been celebrating the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup victory all week, but we're going to deviate from this and watch a whole other sporting event, I guess.
Or shit show. It's definitely going to be a shit show.
So we are doing something for the first time. We're just going to be loosey-goosey about it. If you're listening to this recording, my goal here, or what I'm going to try to do, is make it so that you can hear the debate, but it's just a little quieter than us. And then we're just going to talk over it.
Yeah, I think when you had the volume on earlier when we were testing it out, I think the volume of it goes down automatically when we start talking.
Okay.
I think.
So how does that sound to you right now?
If you're not talking, I can hear it.
Okay, if you want me
That
to
works.
go up or down, just let me know.
That works for me.
Okay. Oh, and we're drinking, by the way, because this shit fucking
Live
sucks.
From Georgia,
Yep.
Battleground state in the race for the White House. In just moments,
Battleground state, sure.
We'll debate the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history.
Presumptive. I guess it depends on which side you're on. Stop the steal.
Studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
You know, they're lucky they got this. This is going to be huge for them.
CNN and is coming
Oh,
to
God, yeah.
It'll be the most watched
CNN
streamed thing you've
CNN.com,
probably ever, I would
CNN
think.
Max and CNN Espanol.
I mean, as far as like
This is a
online
pivotal
goes.
CNN low-key is hoping Donald Trump wins again so they can keep him on the news cycle.
For the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until election.
Jake Tapper is a huge
Jake.
Eagles fan.
I hate Jake Tapper.
Yeah, one more reason to hate him is that he likes the Eagles.
I'm Jake Tapper.
No, dude, he's such a piece of shit.
Co-anchor of State
Oh,
of
they're
Union.
all piece of shit.
Dana and I
I don't like her
moderate
either.
This evening. Our job is to.
So I've also never heard that name be Dana. It's always been Dana.
Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the
That's
audience
how,
at home. Former President
Dana
Trump
White's
will be on
name
the
is
left
pronounced,
side of the
so-
screen.
Right.
President Biden will
See?
be appearing on the right.
She's just trying to be fucking contrarian.
Their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question. And
You know,
1
this might not be
minute each
bad.
For responses
After all
and
the
rebuttals. An
while we're being
additional
very
minute for
negative about
follow-up,
everything,
clarification, or
this
response
might be
is
okay.
at the moderator's discretion.
Yeah, because everybody's going to be on drugs.
His microphone will be turned on, and his opponent's microphone will be turned
Dude, Republicans have just been fucking cranking that. They're like, he's going to be on all the drugs. Biden's going to be on all the drugs. I demand a drug
At the end of the
test.
debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes.
I mean, nobody's
for closing
seen
statements.
Biden for 7
There
days,
is no
basically.
studio audience tonight. Pre-written
He's been
notes
preparing at Camp David.
are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these.
I see your stream's lagging behind.
Welcome.
Sounds like you need better internet.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Oh, God.
Folks, how are you?
Holy shit.
He looks like the fucked up doll from Tool's prison sex video.
And please welcome the 45th President
Wow.
of the United States, Donald Trump.
Oh, God. He's less orange than I
Yeah,
thought
he
he'd
is.
look.
You're right. Oh, man, they fucking hate each other, too.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin.
I know,
Let's
this should
start
turn into a boxing match. Remember when
Say,
Biden was like, I'll take you out back and beat you, you young whippersnapper?
Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased.
Slow, didn't
For
stop.
example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices
more than
have
that.
jumped more than 30.
Whose is a basket?
What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under
It's not
your
Easter.
presidency
Rich
than
people.
they were under President Trump?
Oh, look at
I
his
got to take a
face.
look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. That's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000.
Created 15,000 new jobs.
There's more to be
He
done.
did?
Working-class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Are they still in trouble?
Oh, God.
The table if things weren't able to.
I come from Scranton.
Price of eggs, the price of gas.
He's going to bring up his dead kid, isn't he?
The price of a whole range of things.
1,000%.
I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those
He
problems.
probably died of
And we're going to
inflation.
make sure that we reduce the price of housing.
He's
We're
stringing
gonna make
words
sure we
together really
have
well,
2 million new units.
but he
For now.
sounds
We're
so
gonna make sure we
fucking
get
old.
the corporate
Dude,
greed that
it sounds like he's basically doing the Batman
there's a
voice,
reason why we're in this problem. right
Yes.
now. In addition to that,
but like old Batman. Bane!
with his administration, he didn't do much at all.
Pooped in my
He
cape.
left where things were in chaos.
One of
It was
his
literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people. To $15
Trump did that first.
for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you.
Did he just do his
We're
whole
the greatest economy in the history.
his
of-
whole spiel?
We have never done so well.
he stuck the landing.
Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929.
And
By
you shut the
time we
country down.
finished, we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the
Yep.
economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good.
You did bomb Syria.
We got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID
And killed
mess.
Soleimani in Iraq,
He created mandates. That was a disaster for our country.
which was kind of
but
cool,
Other
actually.
than that, we had
Yeah, Obama killed a U.S. citizen, so
a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID.
He's right
He
about
has
the mouse
not
back
done a good
jobs.
job. He's done a poor
and the
job.
illegal
He's
immigrants.
killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is,
You don't think we have the greatest economy in the
we find
world?
ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He
Biden's
had
a
the largest
uniter.
tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover.
Because of
He did
COVID.
something that was
Right.
significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was-
Wow.
You just implemented his exit strategy that was signed.
Very poorly, by the way.
Yeah.
You gave the Taliban a fucking date.
that doesn't have any
And a fuckload of ammo and guns.
dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I
I
can.
see the strategy.
Respond to him.
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up.
Sure.
You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S.
Such a bad idea.
How will you
Good
ensure
Lord.
that doesn't drive prices even?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China
Not true.
and many others. In all fairness,
China.
just force them to pay us a
It's
lot.
never worked like that. Tariffs don't work like that.
Tariffs
Give us a lot of
are
power
awful.
for other things.
It's a fucking tax on
It's just
The
the
thing
goods.
that's
tax.
right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like
Fair.
a bunch
Yeah.
of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. People out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump.
This is actually the most sane I've seen
on
Trump.
both of your administrations.
Yes.
national
He's not unhinged right now.
ties. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President
Look
Trump,
at
your
Biden.
administration approved $8.4 trillion new debt. While so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts
boy.
you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because
the
neither of
tax
us will be
cuts
alive
spurred
at
the
the end.
greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to.
As long as you close tax loopholes, 21% is more than sufficient. Not to mention the top 1% already make up like 40% of all taxes.
Nobody else has had.
Might be higher than
we
that.
got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under so we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about.
What's the combined age of these
more
two?
People dying in his administration.
Like
He did the
159,
mandate, which is a
160?
disaster, mandating it. The
Trump's
vaccine
what,
went out. He did
79,
a
Biden's
mandate on the
81.
vaccine, which is the thing
Yeah,
that people
you're close.
most objected
Jesus.
to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect
Fucking nailed that
anymore. We're like
Trump
a
had
third
brought-
world nation between
he brought
weaponization
everything
of
down
his
to a
election,
level now
trying to
where
go after his political opponent.
the bar is so
All of
low
the
that
things
he
he's done, we've
seems
become like a third
extremely
world
rational
nation,
right now.
and it's a shame. The damage he's
but that's
to our
he
country.
does this is like the most hinged I've ever seen him
Millions
Yeah.
of people to come
ever
here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
He's going to
President Trump, we will
bash
get
Biden
to
with
immigration later in this class.
100%.
President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut, benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening?
Cutting taxes doesn't actually cost money.
2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%.
Of course not. Yeah,
25%,
it's crazy
either
that
one
they
of
think
those
that.
They've raised $500
Well, economists say that. Like,
million.
it doesn't actually cost money to cut taxes.
We'd
You have
be
to
able
cut spending.
work on his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing
Oh,
with
he's starting to lose it.
have to do with look, if
It's happening.
really be care.
Thank you,
I thought he was dying.
President Trump.
Honestly, I thought we were watching that on stage.
We beat it to death.
Would they just wheel out Kamala Harris to finish the
all of
debate?
these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on
He's
Social
declining
Security. They're going to
and
destroy
rapidly.
Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people.
It's his way out.
They're trying to put them in
Collapse.
Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence.
Look at him breathe.
And it's a shame. What's happened to our country
He's getting pissed.
in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump.
Oh,
This is the first
setting the
presidential
tone.
election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This
here we
morning,
go.
the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban.
I thought SCOTUS
Former
was like
President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn.
For the record, as we saw, abortions are actually up,
Correct.
but
They
they're
are.
just harder to get. But there's never been as many abortions as we're having now in this country.
Access to abortion pills.
This debate's an
used
abortion.
in about 2/3 of
getting
all
there.
abortions. As president, would you
It's
block
actually not that
abortion
bad.
medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you
They
look
did
at
not
this
approve
whole
anything.
question that you're
That's
asking,
not what they do.
a complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that
Killing abortion. He knows what he's
now,
doing.
10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other
I mean, this isn't what
things.
he
But every
personally
legal
believes.
scholar
He's
He doesn't
always
believe
been
anything.
a Democrat. Yeah.
respected
So,
wanted
but
it
as
brought
far as
back to the
as far as
states.
I'm
I did
concerned,
that. Now the states
I'm happy
are
with the
working
result.
it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing.
You know what? He's nailing this though.
Is different.
He's right
but
about
they're all
Kansas
making their own decisions.
And Ohio.
And
Yeah.
right now, the states control it.
Ohio legalized abortion and marijuana on the same
Ronald
referendum.
Reagan, I believe in the
Kansas,
exceptions. I am
red
a person
Kansas
that believes.
declined
And frankly,
to.
I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do
Ralph
this.
Northam.
He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
He's quoting exactly what that
happened
guy
is we
said on the
brought it
radio.
back to the states, and the country
Dude,
is
Trump
now
is nailing this right
together
now.
on this issue.
He
It's been a
is.
great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a
None of
terrible
that was
thing,
false.
what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help.
You can't say
The idea that states
the
are
bad
able to do
thing.
this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about it.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
She was.
Young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to investigate across state lines.
It's not true.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan.
You kind of have to be like, you're so bad on this issue that you're building my wall and implementing
tried to get it back.
Laws that I put in place to stop it, the stem of immigration.
Where they wanted it.
It's easy.
He seems coherent enough to make that argument right
Staying
now.
on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states.
Yeah, we're on abortion now. How did we get to immigration?
Have no legal restrictions
Biden
on
brought
how
it up.
far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters.
That's not an answer.
First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation.
He's saying 9 months.
Third time is between the doctor. Between the
third
woman and the
trimester.
state.
Yeah.
The idea that the politicians that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician.
He's saying you can abort a 9-month-old baby.
Making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you
Definitely.
can do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he
You're president.
of the baby.
You're president
And even after,
already.
because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, Governor.
Look, you're already president. Just do that.
Yeah, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade.
That's what you just said.
For that. That's not
That's what you just said.
Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are
That's not what you said, though.
Term abortion. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship.
It was an interpretation, not a law.
51 years.
Yeah.
And it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress,
like nothing.
and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period.
That's not
would
what he
never
said.
happen.
And that's also not what he said.
No, he
Very,
said
very
states.
conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's
Biden is just making
immigration
shit
and
up.
border security.
Oh,
President
100%.
Biden, record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states.
These are tough questions, by the way.
Overburdening
I'm
cities such
surprised.
as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation.
I don't think that ever happened.
He was taking
I don't think
separating
so.
babies from their mothers, putting them in cages.
Oh, the
making sure
Obama
they're-
policy.
Who built the cages, Joe?
That's not the right way.
Who built them?
What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office.
He changed it
And
like
I'm
a
gonna
week
continue to
ago.
move until we get the total ban on
Where the fuck did he come up with that number?
initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
Trump's just going to say you
President
cut
Trump.
everything.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave.
Whoa.
It. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people
That's fair.
that are from prisons.
I wouldn't say it's the safest border
mental
ever, but
institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We're the
Canada's border with the U.S. is pretty safe.
now all terrorists all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world. They're pouring in.
They just arrested
This
6
guy
terrorists in America
Just
that
left
came
it
across the
open.
border.
And he didn't need
Yep.
legislation because I didn't have legislation.
Chinese nationals are flying to Mexico to come across the border.
In that final couple of months of my
The FBI
presidency,
found a car
we had,
packed with
according
guns.
to Border Patrol, who
That's how
is
close they were to
great, and by the way,
executing
who
a terrorist
endorsed me
attack.
for president, but I won't say
The
that.
CIA probably gave it to him.
Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest
called
border in
Brandon?
history. Now we have the worst border in
I
history.
think so.
Never been
He
anything
did. It
like
says it on the
and people are dying
caption.
all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3, under his administration, killed
Wrong.
a person come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again,
Actually, there's all the data to support it. You're giving them cell phones and sending them along the way
Of
for an
immigration,
asylum,
that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest.
like an asylum case that might take 4 years to prosecute.
Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, How will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest
Got him.
anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just
Huge.
on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens.
By the way, like 46% of Democrats believe in mass deportation at this point.
They're
I saw
killing
that.
our citizens at a level that we've never
That's a bad
seen
number for
before.
Joe Biden.
And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now.
You know, they say that mass deportation could actually tank our economy.
Nobody's ever seen anything like that.
I would not support mass deportation.
We have to
Who will pick the avocados, Joe?
Destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places.
That's fair.
Our veterans
New York City, I think,
dying because
is
he doesn't care about our
40%
veterans.
of
He doesn't
hotel
care. He
rooms
doesn't
are
like the
occupied by
military
immigrants,
at
I
all.
think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dude,
he-
they're spending billions of dollars housing these
I have the
undocumented
highest approval
immigrants.
rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less.
Just answer the question.
Because he's done all these great things that we did, and I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in. And
President
it's a very
Biden,
sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans.
No, it's not.
They're all since I passed the pat down. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And
Ooh, it's coming.
The group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with
Here it comes.
glioblastoma. I
Drink.
was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery.
Or more like poo day for you.
Used to go. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, "I don't want to go in there."
He has a constant look of confusion on his face.
My loser was not a sucker.
Yeah.
You're a sucker. You're the
And Trump just looks bored.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say
19 people
Terry,
said you didn't say it.
about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure he did say John McCain's a loser for being a POW.
Yes.
It's the same thing. 51
When John McCain had his funeral,
that the laptop
Trump was like,
Russia
"You're welcome."
disinformation. It wasn't. That came from the
For the record, this is not a pro-Trump podcast.
disinformation. He
No,
made up the
absolutely
suckers and
not.
losers, so he should apologize to be
I'm
right
just saying,
now.
I'm just calling what I've seen
Four-star
here.
general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country.
The fuck do you do for vets?
Take them home and their families and equip them
Angry
when they go to
Biden is
war.
just a
That's what we're
bad
doing.
look.
That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
Are they?
All right, thank you so much.
The VA is like one of
I
the
want
most
to take this
expensive failures in American history.
Ukraine, which is now
Most veterans will tell you that.
former President Trump. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war If Russia keeps
I
these
know old
Ukrainian
vets. I'm pretty
territories
sure my grandfather and my father-in-law
Ukraine
both turned
and
down the VA benefits because
to
they're
join
shit.
NATO, are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't.
If that's what you call him, that is what
He's
you call
fucking
him.
funny. I
And
mean,
they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged.
That's true. The number of dead Ukrainians, Ukraine won't release the numbers because it's technically a state secret, so they don't have to release the numbers.
The history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers and 38
seconds to Saigon, maybe.
Obliterated. And by the way, we left
Beautiful. They're so beautiful.
citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said,
I have to say this, though.
I think we're
Trump is coherent. Like, Biden is starting to just attack him because I think he's losing his fucking marbles.
Invaded Ukraine. Never.
I think Trump is right.
Israel would have never
I don't
been
want to say
invaded
that. It sucks.
in a million years by Hamas.
I think he's
You know
right.
why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of
See, he's
money.
right, 'cause
They were broke. They had no
Iran
money
is
for
the
Hamas.
biggest
They
fucking
had no
problem in
money
this
for
entire
anything.
situation.
No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration.
Terror.
This place, the whole world is blowing up under
It's from
him.
New York.
The New York, yeah.
President Biden?
Never
Beats Scranton.
my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops.
To you?
He did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two,
Surprised
we
he went
got
there.
over 100,000 Americans and
I forgot
others
that
out
happened.
of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where
Yeah, you also had people fall off the planes and to their death.
this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want.
This guy told
And
Ukraine.
that's
He
exactly
told
what
Trump.
did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is
Is that number real?
terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable.
It's the
No,
number
they're
I
not
know.
acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given
Iran.
$200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky...
I thought that's where he was going when they asked this question the first time.
He's the greatest salesman ever.
He gave
And
all
I'm
that
not
money to
knocking him.
Iran.
I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending.
Wasn't Obama sending pallets of money
war
Yes.
to Iran?
between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Don't think
Maybe.
so.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear.
Now
He wants to
say
be
that about Netanyahu.
part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants.
Look, dude, you keep saying stop bringing up Netanyahu. He's the leader of a country that's occupying another
Ukraine. What do you think
country, according to like 100 other
What do
countries.
you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to
Ukraine's not a NATO country.
do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, All that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO
Disagree.
as much funding for
He's
Ukraine
both
as
right
we
and
have.
wrong.
That's why
40-some% of that money goes towards funding their
Thank you.
economy
Moving on to the Middle East. In October,
and
Hamas
funding pensions,
attacked
by the
Israel,
way.
killing more than 1,000
Here's
people
my
and
number one
taking
issue.
hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans.
USPS is going broke because they have to forcefully fund the pensions, and yet you're sending billions to Ukraine to fund their pensions.
President Biden
Just saying.
put forward
Fuck mail.
a proposal to resolve this conflict.
Like, fuck the mail.
So far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza.
It's because Netanyahu doesn't want to.
Additional leverage will you use to get
They give up the
Hamas and
hostages at any
Israel
time.
to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
number one.
Why would you give up your leverage?
From the United Nations
They won't.
Security Council, straight to
Yeah,
the
duh.
G7, to the Israel.
policy.
Himself
Gotta-
endorsed the plan.
Never give up your leverage.
Endorsed the plan I put forward.
Killing them is
Just
a great
3 stages
leverage.
to it. The first stage is trade the
Killing
hostages
Hamas.
for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war.
This
The
is
only
not
one
going to
who wants the war
happen.
to continue
It's a
is Hamas.
delusional point of
You've
view.
You've been barking up that tree for months.
Pushing hard
They've declined it 8
to get
times.
them to accept. In the meantime, what's
Who's
happening
they, Aaron?
in Israel?
The
I
terrorists.
find the only
Don't you
thing
dare.
denied
I know what you're
Israel
going to say.
was 2,000-pound bombs.
We're trying to watch a
They don't
debate.
work very well.
That's actually not true.
They kill a lot of innocent people.
Google.
We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way,
That's also
I'm
not
the
true.
guy
He'll
that
withheld
organized
bombs.
the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack.
Ballistic.
No one was hurt.
A ballistic missile.
Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things.
That classic
Hamas
Trump face.
cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people
Yeah.
to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it.
He would have played a great Grinch.
Greatly weakened Hamas.
Yes.
Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what.
Technically, he
using
was in a
certain
movie with the
weapons
Grinch because he was in
among
Home Alone
population
2,
centers.
and they played the cartoon Grinch
Stand
movie
back
in
to
it.
Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business.
He made that up.
100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over
To
100.
be fair, not that he did that,
It
but
has no impact
some of these countries have actually started increasing their percentage of GDP to funding NATO.
As far as
Yeah.
Israel,
I even,
Hamas.
who say that these countries don't pay their fair share, will admit that they started paying more.
Israel is the one, and you should let him go.
Still not enough, but more.
He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President,
He
you have a
called him
minute?
a Palestinian.
This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in
Yeah, everyone else will shit their pants because we basically are NATO.
avoid a war. in
That's
Europe,
why they
or
increased
major
their
war in
funding.
Europe.
Right.
Because they
Happens
said,
with
oh,
the fact
shit.
You have Putin continue to go into.
We should pull out of NATO just to make these other countries shit themselves and be like, you better fucking respect
You want
us.
to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about? Go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then.
Come on.
No idea what-
That is such a fucking false equivalency. You made that once, that, oh, he's just going to roll into Poland. He has struggled to take over a very weak Ukraine.
This kind of dislocation has a serious.
And you think that he can just roll over the rest of Europe?
War in Europe has never been able to be contained
Come on.
just to Europe.
President,
That's such a fucking bullshit
do you
answer.
support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see. But before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations.
Oh, my God.
Because if you add them up, they're
I'm so
about the
sick of
same
hearing this
size
guy on trade.
economically. Their economy
His
is
trade
about the same
policies were
size as
shit.
the United States. And they
To
were
be fair,
making
pretty much
cars,
everybody's
you know,
trade policies
pretty
are
much
shit.
we have. So
Yeah.
we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next month.
I think it's so funny when he does
But
that billions
now we're
and
in the same
billions.
position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Billions and
Let's turn to the
billions.
issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January
Trump, who's
6,
leading on democracy
2021.
right now, by the
After
way.
you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated
Here we go.
casting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th.
I do.
On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations
You don't
ever.
want
On
to
January
use
6th, we were
January 6th
respected all over
as a
the
good
world.
thing.
All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible.
This is like naming a
including
bad economy after
weaponization, which I'm sure at
Bidenomics.
some point
He has to do this, though.
where he goes
He
after
has to.
Lapone,
I like-
beat him fair and square.
Maybe.
You have 80 seconds left.
I wouldn't have gone about
Especially
that
on
way.
CNN.
Say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say.
Filmmaker?
Oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was
This is true,
responsible
by the way.
for
I
this.
saw that video.
Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way.
That is true.
In writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They
That is
turned it
true.
down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming.
See, this
you
is
could feel
this
it.
is what
You
he
could feel
does.
it
Is he
too, and you could
muddles
feel it.
the argument.
And I said, they ought to
you
have
can't
yeah.
respond to this.
National Guard or whatever.
No,
And I
he's been very good on everything, in my opinion, up to this point.
And it was.
I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying
I don't know. He can't be very happy with her
It's-
daughter.
It's his only
impossible to
strategy
argue
he
with.
can take.
But
It's
I-
his only
Yeah.
strategy he can take.
Responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
I guess that wasn't a bad
What they've done
response.
to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed
see.
the lives
Here
of
we
so
go.
many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done
That's
there,
fair.
fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left.
Why are you pointing out the
immediately.
bad things that happened
What
when you
he
were
said
president?
about this whole subject
Because
is
he's saying that he squashed.
Oh,
Just
he's
let me take
okay.
one
I
other
see.
thing.
Yeah.
The unselect committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they
The
deleted.
fuck is the unselect committee?
They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to
Thank
jail.
you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at.
Oh, there it
There it
is.
is.
And the fact of the matter is,
Drink.
I'm telling you, it's simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in
Uh-oh.
Capitol Hill.
Rip.
All those people, every one of those who were convicted, just turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had,
I completely agree with Biden on
I
this.
said,
Like,
will you
to me, it was
pronounce
just completely
terrible?
indefensible.
Yeah, but do you know that they also arrested people who were just
I do.
there as tourists? Like the people who flew into the country and were just there while it was happening?
People attack that Capitol. What are you going to
I
do?
can't say I did know that.
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if
Of course you have that as a follow-up.
have every right to go
That's
after,
fair.
unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the select committee on January 6th going to jail.
Biden set a precedent.
I'm standing on stage with you
This
tonight.
is what they
Can you
do.
clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted.
Fuck yeah.
Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important thing. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give
That's
you
true. That did happen. That's real.
prosecutor having
Yes.
to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you.
Well, you did a misdemeanor, not a felony.
Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history.
We
I'm
had two
sorry.
presidents duel each other,
So you are still
right? Right?
all the civil
I believe something like that
billions of
happened.
dollars do you owe
Yeah, I'd probably shut the fuck up.
for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant. I mean, what do you?
Okay, that's not a crime.
You have the morals of an animal.
No, but it is
It's
uncomfortable.
it's morally wrong, but it's not a crime.
Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a
He said you have the morals of an alley cat.
into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people.
He's not wrong. He's going to appeal, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to get overturned.
His political opponent.
It's absurd.
Because
The
he thought it was
lawsuit's
going to damage
absurd.
me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they
Even people from fucking CNN are saying that
phone
shit
numbers
was
went up
absurd.
way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took it
But you know what's not going to go away? Hunter Biden being a felon.
in the history of any
No one's
campaign.
above
I don't
the
think
law.
any campaign has ever taken hundreds of millions
Biden will he'll pardon him.
because the public
He
knows
says he won't. He
Of
will.
course.
And it's
Especially if he's a lame duck.
political opponent because he can't
Oh,
win
absolutely.
fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans.
Biden's been holding his shit together a little bit these last
Yeah.
few minutes.
Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans
Give him a drug test.
to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes, the more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
by
what the juries will
design.
do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, did you ever think you heard any
What about you rigging your primary, Joe?
seek retribution? You
How
ever
about that?
Mm.
How's that for democracy?
I thought Hitler had some good ideas
How's suspending elections in both Israel and Ukraine saving democracy? How's that working?
because of Iraq. I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in
RFK Jr.
Charlottesville,
not on the
Virginia.
stage right now.
People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas
Should be.
on torches, and singing.
Oh,
the
you want to
Singing
talk about
State of
Charlottesville,
Style. They
bud?
sang when
You want to do
back in
that?
Germany, and the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people who
They
the ones
beat up a
got-
Jew
ones
outside
that
of a
stopped it,
synagogue over
and
the
ones who said,
weekend,
I think
bro.
they're fine people on both sides."
Yeah.
What
I mean,
American president would ever say?
I hope Trump hits
Not
his ass
just
on
coming
this
out
one.
of fields, carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas. We're fine people. This is the guy who says
were they carrying swastikas?
I'd like to know
I
what
don't
they
know.
are.
They were
He said, that's what he
vandalizing and
says.
hanging
This
Palestinian
guy has
flags
no sense of American democracy.
on a statue outside that
President
White
Trump.
House.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate.
It's such an absurd thing when they say that.
And you'll see
But that's what you're gonna get from him. Is it's
Both of them.
always hyperbole. It's
as
always
the
First president.
And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunk.
Oh.
It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out,
Well, he was already elected before you ran.
carrying those woods, carrying those torches,
Well, I guess you lost to Hillary, right?
didn't deserve to be president at all.
Hmm.
And the idea
He
You know,
ran that year,
CNN
didn't he?
talking about all this being
What,
fabricated.
Biden?
We saw it with our
2016?
eyes. We saw
No, I guess he couldn't have.
No,
We saw
no.
the
It was
people
just her.
taking
It was her
windows.
time,
We
Brad.
saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44
CNN
top
is doing a
cabinet
good job,
officers
by the way.
refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't
It
endorsed
brings
him.
me no joy.
I'm shocked at the questions that they're asking. I haven't seen really like a super
Why are
softball
they not
yet.
endorsing him?
No.
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN president.
Ooh,
All right, I'm going to
commercial
mute it for a
debate.
second. I mean, what the thing about these guys is that they're both, when you really are honest intellectually, you could say they're both pieces of shit. And if you accepted that, then you can ask hard questions. And I think that, I don't know, I'm surprised.
I'm thoroughly shocked that CNN is hosting it the way that they're hosting it right now. It's pretty fair. I actually don't mind the rules that they have here, shutting off the mics. Like they're really
This is
holding
good.
them to time.
Yeah,
It-
well,
it's
they're holding
really
themselves
good.
to time too. I mean, they're also just stop. They don't. That
But
first
they-
debate, the first time they
They
debated, that was
also
a fucking,
did this to fuck over RFK Jr. Like they purposely did it to keep him out because the one thing that Democrats and Republicans can agree on is keep third parties out. Like it's the one fucking thing that they can agree on. So I don't know. I think that they are both actually doing fairly well. Biden
Sure.
has been slipping in moments for sure. So I have to kind of give Trump the edge in that
I would give
regard
Trump the
so
edge as
far.
well so far.
Because he didn't start just like attacking Joe Biden until Joe got like real upset and started like going after him personally, and then it became a more personal thing, but he was kind of sticking to policy.
Well, you know, I maybe I'm too over invested in like global, like overseas politics or whatever. Like, I to me, it's just like something I'm really interested in, and for Biden to just abjectly lie about Afghanistan. It just bothers me, man. Like
That
whole country is completely backslid.
It's funny to me that Biden brought up Afghanistan in the sense that like he's the one that did it when that deal was pretty much brokered by Trump. Like, and Trump brought that up. He's like, that's, I had a plan in place and like all this other stuff, and you botched it. Like,
Yeah,
that's
he
a
botched
very
it, but
fair assessment. The problem, I think, lies with one, CNN's probably going to lie about that and say, about Trump having that deal in place, but also that they don't talk about that stuff. I don't think like the regular person understands that that was in place prior to Joe Biden actually going through with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hypothetical because we'll never know if it would have gone better under Trump.
Oh,
or
no,
if,
of course not.
And so to even
wouldn't
say
have.
that, it's an absurd thing. And also, by the way, Joe Biden overturned almost every single thing he could in the executive branch on day one that Trump did. And he left that plan in place. He found the one thing he didn't want to go through with. It's thin.
But that's why it's kind of funny, with like honestly this like whole thing, because Trump is attacking him obviously and rightly so for the border and everything. But what he should do is bring up his own policies, which he didn't do. He could say Joe Biden undid everything that I did, but he didn't necessarily do that. He could sit here and say, Democrats fought against the wall tooth and nail, but here they are still building the wall.
Yeah.
Like, he's not saying those things, which in my opinion,
he won't.
Right, because it's out of the mainstream, in my opinion.
You both faced in your
and we're back.
terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans.
Because of the 1994 crime bill that Joe Biden voted for.
Thank you. Yes, bring that up.
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history.
That might be true. I think I read that somewhere.
Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number 3, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Right. So also remember when Black people started wanting to segregate dorm rooms and colleges and like other stuff?
You mean like back in the 1920s or like 2020?
In 2020.
Yeah, it's a pretty modern trend, right?
I was able to reduce Black.
We don't have to talk about that though.
Well, things always kind of come back into style.
You got to make sure we provide for child care costs.
Sure.
Got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be.
You're talking about child care protections.
There's more to be.
What about the child tax credit that people are losing because you didn't, which I don't agree with, obviously, because I don't like the government giving people money, but the child tax credit that you're getting rid of.
You're disappointed with the progress so far.
I say I don't blame.
Or how about Rachel Levine, his own whatever, saying that,
for example,
there's no like age limit on
idea that
surgeries
family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000
gender identity
to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided.
I don't like this question because
that was ballooning.
Yeah, sure, it's too white. We're too white, guys.
I get it. Okay.
I get why they're asking.
You want to help Black people buy their first home, but the price of homes and the interest rates are so fucking high that they're purchasing at the peak of the market, and they'll never actually gain any money from buying a fucking house right now.
And my point in conjunction with yours is that this is an everybody problem.
He caused the inflation.
You can't just say, I'm going to help this group.
And he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. he caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his green.
So inherently, that's not true, the no inflation thing, because the Fed targets 2% inflation per year.
Sitting there. The
Fair
fact
enough.
is that his big kill.
No president can say
the
that.
black
But,
people.
what do I know?
Millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18.
They're taking black
3
jobs.
million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst.
Trump
in our
always
history.
says something that's
President
sort of
Biden.
right, but it doesn't come to
There was
fruition
no
for many
inflation.
years.
When
Oh, yeah.
President, you know why? The economy was flat on its back, 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's
COVID.
why
Biden
no
wanted to
inflation
fire people
at
who
the time.
didn't take a
There were no
vaccine,
jobs.
dude.
Right.
You want to talk
Thousands of
about
millions of jobs
unemployment?
And actually, he's now had to go and give them back pay and rehire them.
health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care.
I feel like sometimes when they do
Time.
these things, like they're just completely unaware of the consequences of the things that they've done.
Where the idea
Exactly. They
that
never
we're not doing
engage with any of it.
more-
Like they can never be like, oh, well, like, yeah, I did this and I'm deeply sorry
He
for it.
wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot.
I'm
to
so
make it.
sick of that
Wait, he
fucking
wants to
word.
cut the cops?
Inflation,
I'm sorry, your party was screaming defund the police until Republicans said, okay, here's a bill to defund the police. You gonna vote for it?
Persistent challenge is the
And they
climate
didn't.
crisis.
That's a fact.
2023 was
Here we
the
go,
hottest
Brad.
year in recorded history, and communities across
Oh, our favorite topic.
the devastating effects of extreme heat, intense
Devastating.
fires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former
There's
President
no
Trump
evidence of
used
rising
vows
sea
to
levels that
end
I have
your
ever seen. I would like
Or
somebody
stronger
to prove that.
hurricanes.
Will you take any
Hurricanes are
action
bad.
as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every
Yeah, I believe
police group.
that.
That's pretty
And
true,
what he's
yeah.
done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10
And I know personally most people at ICE believe in Donald Trump,
predators,
and
Oh,
people
he
in the
pointed out
and he
the
called it to them, and they've taken great offense at it.
he
And now
pointed
they
out
see
the
it
thing in the
happening.
90s.
right.
When they see what I
And-
did for criminal justice reform,
People in the military also re-enlisted in the military under Trump to fight ISIS.
where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator
Trump's
from
one black
South
friend.
Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the
Oh,
most
come on.
successful
All
economic.
the black rappers used to want to beat Trump. They used to
I
sing about it.
know.
And the biggest beneficiary
He's
are
still
blacks,
friends with a
and
lot of
that's
them.
why we have the best numbers.
ASAP
with
Rocky,
them in
bro.
He
Maybe
was friends with the Clintons. That's all you need to know about.
wherever the best
Mm.
numbers. He's lost
Hmm.
much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people.
To be
He's
fair,
also done a horrible job for
racism
Wait till you
is
see these
also
people
climate
pouring
change.
into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's
We've
already
proved
started.
this
And you
before.
haven't.
So
With
it's
the Google
okay that
search.
Trump has gone back to talk about racism
President Trump
because racism is climate
as
change.
president
We know that.
to slow the climate crisis.
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we did
We had H2O. We had the best
We
numbers
had
ever.
H2O.
all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
My environmental people
don't
said
know
I was
where
the
the hell
best
he's
ever.
Yeah, what are the numbers? You didn't give the numbers. You just said they gave me this statistic.
It's the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
Yeah, it
In
caused
history.
inflation,
We
dude.
find ourselves, and by the way, black
Also didn't happen to fight inflation or climate change in any capacity.
universities and colleges because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black
That's
student
not
is capable of college and
true.
doing what any white student can do. They just have the money.
Oh,
They're not
come
going to be able
now.
to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation
Just remember that
he is
Biden also said
gonna have
black students can be just as smart as white
clean
students.
water.
Yeah.
He hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord.
Or I think he also said regular students, which makes it way worse.
5 degrees
Yeah.
Celsius. And then he went,
He's going to put you all back in chains.
The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and
Facts.
China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a
Facts.
ripoff of the United
Bingo.
States. And
Facts.
I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly.
Facts.
The only ones who
He's so right on the Paris Accords, dude.
it was a disaster.
All it was another
But everything that he said.
another
just
like
now, I'll give
World
you an example. I
Economic
heard him say
Forum
before, insulin.
bullshit
I'm the one that
global
got the
agenda
insulin
thing.
down.
Dude, it was just handing out money to fucking third world
Mhm.
countries.
We've destroyed
That's it.
all of our
Yeah,
medical
it was just
programs.
As an
Spending
apology
money.
for fucking climate change
Everybody
because we are more industrialized than
on
them.
the stage again.
That's all it was. It had no
I
teeth.
want to take care of
There's
people.
literally no consequences for not meeting your stated goals, and pretty much no country on that fucking Paris Accord ever met their
Destroyed
goals.
Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
It's
That-
trash.
And net neutrality. Two things that were
The idea
damn
is that
right.
Well, they brought that back.
We were
Yeah, well.
the only ones of consequence. We're not.
They're
Remember when they
obsessed
said
with it.
everyone's gonna die if we don't
They
keep
said
net
people were
neutrality?
going to die, dude.
Maybe.
Internet
then
speeds went
The
up.
internet's been better than it's ever been.
One of the largest polluters in the world. Number one, we're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have.
It must be all that 5G they put in those COVID vaccines.
We've made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're going to
So stupid. It's so
Wait,
dumb.
They did?
Cause
Yes.
pollution. But the idea,
What?
he claims that
Is
Do you
Greta
know what-
Thunberg the fucking head of it?
concerned about
Do you know what the Climate Corps does?
pollution and about
No.
Basically nothing.
I've
Do you know
not
what they
seen any
make?
indication of that.
$15 an hour.
With regard to prescription drugs, one
Good jobs.
company that they
Remember, good jobs.
$35
Good clean jobs,
called
Brad. Good
one
clean union
voluntarily.
jobs.
I make sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of
Got
people
him.
struggle just to make ends
There's
meet.
the
For
moment.
many older Americans,
No, they cut his mic off.
Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solid?
Especially, which is funny because they just increased the COLA
fair share.
on Social
Right
Security.
now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck.
That's
And
a
it's
lot.
The first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm not
People start working when they're 14 and also start paying into Social Security. So statistically inaccurate.
1%. So no one after, I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy.
A millionaire
pay
paying
their fair
1%
share.
is actually a
Increasing it
lot.
from 1%
Like, how
beyond
much
be
is
able to
their fair
guarantee the
share? That's what
program
I
for
always
life.
hate about these.
So you still have 82 seconds left.
Oh, they don't have an answer.
Measures that you think that would be
No.
able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But
And he just keeps randomly putting out this $400,000 number.
he thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security.
It's like it's the only number he can remember.
And Medicare, both times. And that's what. And if you look at
Bet that number
the
doesn't mean
program
as much as
put
it
forward
did
by the
4
House
years ago with
Republican
inflation.
caucus that he, I believe, supports,
No, not
is
anymore.
in fact want to
Kind of
cut.
need to make 400,000 to be middle class.
We don't need to protect our seniors. It's ridiculous.
Some people
by
are
the
working
way,
2 jobs
American
back to
public has
back,
greater
Brad.
healthcare
Some
That's how
people.
bad it is
than
out
ever
there.
Before. And on the ACA,
Full-time jobs, too.
in a
Just
circumstance
fucking
where
greedy motherfuckers.
people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing allows them to have
Yeah, we're talking about Social Security.
is the fact that they in fact are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation.
Also, your Obamacare subsidies actually expired next year, and you haven't done anything to
the amount of money,
redo those.
another $8,000. So anybody making under
Obamacare sounds pretty bad,
$70,000
Brad.
a year can
Well,
get-
it might go away if there's no subsidies. There's going to be no marketplace because the insurance companies can't get their subsidy money,
Thank you, President Biden, President Trump.
which is the whole reason why we have Obamacare, because the government is paying for you to have health insurance
Equation for the last.
and still costing you $800 a month.
I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen if he can
Except
look
yourself.
okay.
Okay.
The other things too. And we mentioned the
Good
laptop.
move.
Mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace.
Oh, Biden
But
hates when
Social
he does
Security,
that.
he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what
Facts.
he's doing, and it's really coming
Still
back.
not the question,
I've
but
never seen such
facts.
anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way,
we already litigated this. Like,
he acknowledged
let's
that.
move on.
Fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two,
Commander
the
in
idea
chief.
that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and
Ooh,
taking
can't say
our
that.
jobs,
You can't call them aliens, dude.
destroying the economy in the world. The reason why we
They're
have
gonna
a
chop him up
successful
over that
economy in the
tomorrow.
world. We're doing better
Oh,
than any
CNN won't.
nation in the world. And by the way, those
MSNBC
15
will.
Nobel
Well,
laureates who
maybe
talked
not,
about
but
being
somebody
fired,
will.
No, they might.
15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession. And
Those economists were all Democrats, by the way, and they're married to people who are working for his administration.
Also, I think being a Nobel laureate is a little misnomer. Like, they gave
Thank you so much.
Obama a Nobel Peace Prize for killing civilians.
Actually, they gave it to him before he was fucking president, I'm pretty
tried to
sure.
address this issue. But the average cost of childcare in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of childcare for two
That's
children
inflation,
is
bud.
more than their rent.
Nah, dude.
What would you
Childcare's
do
always been
to make
really
more
expensive.
affordable?
Yeah, I think inflation's just made it
That's why
worse.
some families decide just to work live on one income.
If he said that, that's why he made it up. But we
Because
have
some jobs, like, they'll only pay enough to cover childcare, and then what's the point of working?
The other thing is, he
Fuck
doesn't
them
fire
kids.
people. He never fired.
Amen.
I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot
You know
of
what?
the top people.
That
Oh,
is
that's
a-
not true. He had to fire that dude in a dress
He should
that was
fire
stealing people's shit.
Oh.
for it. But they inherited these people. I
No,
didn't put
it's a
him- I
good
didn't
point,
put
though.
Comey there. He was
Biden
no
does
good.
not fire
I fired
anybody,
him.
and he has a
This
lot
guy
of people who
hasn't
do a
fired
very
anybody.
bad job.
He never
Democrats.
Like I would have fired
He should've
fired
fired
Jake Sullivan after
every military
Afghanistan.
man that was involved with that Afghan
Democrats. They'll steal your luggage and steal
Oh.
your gender.
horror show. The most
He's pointing it out right
embarrassing
now.
moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border? That's
He
allowed
just said
us
what
to
I
have
just
the
said.
worst
Wow.
border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing
Right.
18 million people? Many
Could have
from,
fired Mayorkas.
many from
Republicans tried to.
institutions. Did you fire anybody that allowed our
Hey, man,
country to be destroyed?
It's not Mayorkas'
Joe, our
fault.
country
He's just
is
doing
being
what Biden tells him to
destroyed as
do.
you and I
Yep.
sit up here and
It's just a
waste a
shit
lot of
policy,
time on
and
this
he's doing the
debate.
job.
This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore.
I
That's
agree.
how bad it is. He is the worst.
250 years.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world.
Wrong.
United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us.
That's not true.
Number two, the idea.
They're screwing around with us by not screwing directly with us.
Look it up or go online.
They're trying to get us so deep into funding every other war that we can't possibly do enough for ourselves.
Who's the worst president
Also,
in American history?
This one's
One
insane
best
too
to
because they
worst.
got
They
these
said he was the
historians
worst
to
in
rank
all
presidents, and they put
of
like
American
Obama at number
history.
6.
That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea
They
that
are
he is
wrong. I
doing
disagree with it.
anything to deal with
I love the
childcare.
ranking
He did
presidents.
virtually nothing to childcare. We should significantly increase the childcare
Also,
tax
by the way,
credit.
the
We
Russians
should
did just
significantly
send like
increase the
fucking
availability
submarines off the coast of like
women and
Florida
men
recently.
of
Yeah.
single
So
parents.
how's that for respect?
And we should
Yeah.
They
encourage.
respect you so much that they just wanted to show you some of their own subs.
Question was about
That
Imagine if we
happened to
put our
have
sub out by
nuclear
Siberia.
fucking capabilities.
You understand? We have polling. We have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me. I'll show you. I will show you. And they rate me one of the best. Okay. And if I'm given another 4 years,
Even
bad,
Biden's
dude.
laughing. He's like, "Come on."
nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever.
Wait, did he say they raped me?
He's the only one I know. He
No,
wants to
this-
raise your taxes by 4
Dude, this
times.
caption
He
thing
wants
is
to
wild. This
raise
is on YouTube,
everybody's
I think.
taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business.
See, he was going to say 4 to 5 times the tax rate. That's not actually
money
true.
back into our country.
And he stopped
The worst
himself from
president
saying
in
it.
history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff
Wrong.
is 2% tariffs. Everything coming in the country. You know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more.
Yet you continued and persisted with Trump's tariffs.
And all the things that we're
Biden
important.
uses tariffs
Number two,
right
Yes.
now.
he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion
And by you.
years, which is going to
There hasn't been a
fundamentally
middle
bankrupt
class
the
since
country.
George
You have
Bush,
the largest deficit of any president in American
frankly.
history. Number one.
That's fair.
Two, you have not, in fact, made any.
I'll be right back and grab another drink. I'm out.
You know what? I'm going to step back too.
With China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We were at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you,
$160.
President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under
Ooh, opioids.
gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Say legalize drugs.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. I think he's to deal with them.
Get the fuck out of here.
You notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away
Aaron,
because it's too much
Yes.
money.
you fucking missed.
He saved our
No!
state.
Yes.
Could have come, but he hasn't done that.
They're talking about addiction. Supposedly, Trump went back and said we have the worst economy, all this other stuff. He said that Joe Biden takes money from China and that he's a Manchurian candidate.
China's going to own us if you keep.
Wow.
You missed it.
They are killing us as a country, Joe. And
Frankly,
you can't let
I don't
that happen.
disagree with
You're
the fact
destroying our
that
country.
Joe Biden is really
So,
easy on
President
China.
Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question
Oh,
is,
100%.
what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were
Bring up
doing
Hunter.
very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog. That's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of
Fuck is a gotaway.
human trafficking in women coming across our
It's
border.
somebody who gets across the
worst thing
border
I've
but
ever
doesn't
seen.
get encountered by the border
At
patrol.
numbers that nobody's ever seen under him.
That's
because-
a lot of them.
But
Yeah.
the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
I don't know if
Fentanyl
that's
and bipartisan
So
true.
they asked him that question twice,
Wow.
and he did not answer it
I want
twice.
to make sure we use the
Right.
machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of
Boy, that
all
far
over
away
the
shot,
border.
Biden looks
And
fucking
when we
high
had
as
that deal
shit.
done,
Yeah,
he called his Republican colleagues. Said,
dude,
"Don't
his eyes just look black all the
He never argued
time.
it's not a good bill.
Yeah, they
It's
juiced
a
him
really
up good.
bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico
They're not.
working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what
No, Mexico's assassinating people
Thank you, President Biden.
that are
President
running for
Biden, again, the
office.
question is about
They're not
Americans
stopping
those of addiction right
fentanyl.
now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We
If
had
I was
so
president,
many
I
things
would
that we
say
had
bring
done.
back
Hard
the
negotiations with Mexico. I got it all
asylums,
for nothing.
call them
It's
hospitals.
just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion
guys can't do
for
that.
every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter,
That doesn't
I think a
stop people
good
from
guy.
doing drugs.
and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for
He went
the
from an
reporter.
addiction
I will
question
have
to
him
a
out
journalist in
very
Russia.
quickly. As soon as I take office, before I take office, I
Well,
said,
there is no real answer to the
as soon as I
opioid
think
crisis,
election,
right?
I will
Like,
have
unless
No.
you completely end pharmaceutical companies, which isn't going to
He's
happen,
probably asking billions and
pretty
billions.
much pharmaceutical companies will tell you to get fucked on all the drugs unless they maintain,
People.
uh,
I got 58 people out.
what are they? It's like prosecutorial,
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to
Like-
concerns that voters have about each of you.
what do they call that?
President
Fucking
Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Wow.
First of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the
That's
second
bad.
youngest person ever
Don't do
elected
it.
to the United States Senate.
yeah.
And now I'm-
Also,
this guy's three.
it should be not a good thing that you've been in the government for 50 years.
The record. Look at what I've done. Look, I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million.
You didn't. No, you didn't.
COVID.
Actually, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas.
That's a
and bring home
really
product.
unfair accusation.
Everybody's been sending fucking jobs to
Yeah.
China forever.
Here in the United States, and then,
Since the
guess
70s,
what?
Brad.
Those fabs they call them, that to build these chips. Those fabs.
He's trying to blame him for 50 years of politics.
It's so crazily unfair.
About $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
Trump
President
is
Biden,
being
you have
really
40 seconds left. Would you like to add
patient.
anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before.
The other day he was at a black college for the commencement ceremony, and he was talking about how they didn't have a fucking shot in America.
All our problems and all our opportunities.
That's true.
We're the most
Didn't he say you have to work 10 times harder or something?
We're
Yeah.
the strongest country in the world. We're a
If
country
anybody
in the world that
criticizes
keeps
this
our
country,
word.
it's Joe Biden who
Everybody
told
trusts
people
us. All of our
somebody would
allies.
put them back
And our-
in chains.
He did say that.
He cuddles up to from Kim Jong-un. He sends love letters to Putin.
By the way,
Remember when women were like, if Trump wins the presidency, it's going to be like, what's that
Handmaid's
stupid
Tale.
fuck, yeah.
At the end
Come
of your
on.
second term. What
By
do
the
you
way,
say to voters who
Biden
have
is right about
concerns
pointing out
about your
that Trump kissed
capabilities
Kim
to
Jong
serve?
Un's ass,
Well, I
and that
took
was
2
fucking
tests,
disgusting.
cognitive tests. I aced
The Rocket Man.
both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took
I think
2
it's only
cognitive
5 questions.
physical exams every year. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that,
Oh,
you have to
no.
be quite smart And you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
What?
I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30.
This is what we
What
thought
the
we were getting
fuck,
into.
man? We finally got there. This is
Shape as I
insane.
was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well,
He's
aced
overweight. The other guy falls off of
Dr.
fucking
Ronnie
bikes
Johnson,
and
who's
trips.
a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one.
Oh, he
And
got the name right
one of
this
them
time.
said
He called
they'd never
Ronnie
seen
Johnson the
anybody
other day.
ace him.
Did he? I didn't see that.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6.
That's actually pretty good for somebody who's 6'5".
Anyway,
That's actually
Yeah.
like a really good athletic
what
weight.
he says. He
There are NHL players who are 6'5",
I'd be
225.
happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a
We are
6.
doing the golf thing.
And but by the way, I told you before, I'm
Look at him laughing.
your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8
Oh my
handicap.
God.
Why are we talking about golf?
You know how many?
I've seen this.
This is just further proof that this is like, I think this might be a worse election than
You
To
are
a
a child.
specific
in
concern
2016.
that voters have about you.
Like, you're talking about golf.
Tonight,
Who gives a fuck?
legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the
They
results of
lasted
this election,
about 75
regardless of who
minutes.
wins. And you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that
Ask
I made
him if
in the
he'll
Rose
resign
Garden,
after
you would say it's
2028.
one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the
Right.
speech I made, in
That's
fact,
the real question.
crowd I've ever
Yeah.
spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the
Also, CNN won't talk about all of the people who currently are actually
was her
getting
responsibility.
convicted of crimes
Loud and clear.
for election fraud from the 2020 election
If the election is fair
and
free, I want
2022
that more than anybody.
elections.
And I-
That's actually happening. But remember,
There is fraud.
He's a great president.
safest and fairest elections of all time.
At one of my
But
main places,
yet there's people being prosecuted for
I
fraud
wouldn't
now.
be under
So,
indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I
to
would.
be fair, he didn't indict you.
I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so
At least
bad
not
as a
out loud.
president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again.
Oh, we're still doing that?
Failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation, and we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad.
I have to agree with Trump here. We are a failing nation, but it's not strictly because of Joe Biden. It's also because of Donald Trump and like 10 presidents before them.
World War III
Sure.
than anybody can imagine. We are very,
I'll-
very close to World
I'll
War
say,
III.
I've probably
and
told
he's
you
driving
before
us there. And
that
Kim
George H.W.
Jong-un
Bush was the
and,
last
Presidency
highly
of
qualified
China,
person
Kim
to be the
Jong-un of North
president.
Korea,
That was a
all
long
of these
time ago.
Putin,
I would
they
agree.
don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
Ooh,
World War III.
true.
Let him follow and win, and let Putin say, "Do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want." There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all. A required response. The idea. I can't think of a single major leader in the world.
Dude, when he does that, the idea looks like this creepy fucking puppet.
We are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable.
He
of
does that
anything. They'll
loud,
step up when they
quiet,
need it.
loud, quiet.
And right now, we're needed.
It doesn't work
We're
anymore.
needed.
Well, he can't yell. He's
Physically.
physically incapable of it.
You want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border.
I mean, he's
Then
remarkably
have a war.
But
there.
But Aaron, that is a false fucking argument.
The question
100% a false
will
argument.
you accept
You constantly rail against Russia being so weak and you laugh at them and all this other shit, but at the same breath you'll say that they could roll through Europe.
Russia.
That's just not
Took a
true.
lot of land from
You cannot believe that both
I've
things
never
are
said they're
true.
going to
And
roll
Biden.
through
They
Europe.
took no land.
My
nothing.
concern is that they're
That's
going
not
to
true.
attack
You have said that.
Not to do it.
My
Not
concern
gonna
is
play
they're going
games
to
with
attack
me. He knew that.
NATO
We got along with him
country and
very
drag
well,
us
but he knew
into
not
a
to play
conflict that we
He took
cannot say
nothing
no
from
to.
me.
But we're already in a conflict that we can't say no to because they've attacked Ukraine,
That's
who is
what
not a NATO
never
country.
started. It would have never
So
started.
what is it?
ever.
If they attack, I told you, if they attack a NATO country,
He's
fine.
going to take Ukraine. And, you asked me a
Why
question
risk
before,
that
would you
gamble?
do
Why
this?
gamble?
He's got us in such a bad position right now
Because
sound
it's
like
not
these two
our
right now,
fucking
dude.
business.
because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so
It's
sad.
true.
They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities.
Down syndrome
that are
fighters.
1,000 years old. All
Down
because
syndrome,
of
man.
him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the
Do you think that's true?
regardless of
Do you think Russia would have attacked Ukraine if Trump was president?
It's a fair and legal and good election. Absolutely. I would have much rather accepted
I don't even know how they got
these,
back to Ukraine,
but
honestly.
the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will
That's true.
absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that.
What he said is true, though. Like they fired a bunch of military generals for taking money.
To run until I
The
saw
fraud
the
is rampant.
job he did.
So
He's
I
destroying
never-
our country. I would be
Yeah,
very
I don't know
happy to
anything
be
about it.
someplace else in a nice location, someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
that's fair.
Let's see what your numbers are in this election.
Gotta-
Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any.
Pretty sure Democrats did that when Al Gore lost.
None. But you continue to provoke this lie.
Topic
about
of discussion
somehow
for
there's all
another
this
time. I have thoughts on
representation,
that.
all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all.
Al Gore could have
And
won
I
that
tell you what,
election,
I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The
but he
idea if
fucked
you
up.
lose again,
Speaking of
you're
whiner,
accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the
Another
presidential debate.
Brad,
Another
I
commercial
got to
break.
tell you, last time these two guys debated, those two debates were fucking terrible. This is not a bad debate.
I really think that cutting the mics is so smart. It's so
and
smart.
no crowd either.
It's to Trump's detriment inherently because you know that he goes off of the crowd, like all sorts of stuff. He's actually, I believe, admitted that he made a mistake just accepting this debate and letting them ultimately pick whatever rules they wanted. But he actually is pretty coherent. He is not rambling. To me, he doesn't seem crazy. And believe it or not, he already knows that he can win with crazy. He has those people. What he doesn't have is the people who think he's crazy. So for him actually acting sane for once, I actually think it works in his favor. Believe it or not. Those undecided people, they're like, he seems a little unhinged. You can't really say that in this debate.
Not so far. And Biden also hasn't seemed God, I don't know. I thought maybe he would freeze up. I thought maybe he would
He's lost
stutter.
his way a couple of times, but not to the point that we see normally on national TV, right?
But like he's actually addressing Trump face to face, like looking him in the eyes and saying something, and it doesn't sound
he's
coherent.
Right, he's coherent, and that's a good thing for him, for sure. But I think it will only give him a slight uptick in polls. But at the same time, Trump's ability to not be unhinged right now might kind of negate those upticks, in my opinion.
I suppose you could say that they're both overperforming.
Yes, 100%. But we saw Biden do this at the State of the Union, and then he had an uptick in polls. But then we see, a million videos of him fumbling and bumbling and all this other shit, and then those polls go back down. Or he does something. I mean, he tried to institute that policy where people could petition to have their immigrant wives, gain citizenship, and the Supreme Court shut that down.
That was it was interesting, both of them on immigration, because he said that, and then Trump said if you graduate with a degree, then you get a green card. I have no problem with either one, frankly. But
I mean, that's a path to citizenship, which
I mean, it's one
Democrats
way
bitch about, so they can't really complain about that policy if we let you over here to go to school on an immigrant visa, and then
I'll
you get your
steel man
degree.
that argument. This is how they would do it. They would say Trump is just a greedy corporate titan, and he just wants to use their labor or something like that. I mean, that's how if I was a Democrat, that's how I would do it.
But Democrats want the same thing. They say that we can't stop immigration and stuff like that because nobody wants these jobs. So we have to give it to them. So they also want to use immigrant labor.
That's just that's the beautiful soft bigotry of low expectations with the Democrats.
100%.
Statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to be
home stretch.
President Biden, you have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term.
In what capacity?
We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said
no, we shouldn't have taxation, and you need to
Nancy Pelosi, maybe
close all tax loopholes.
We will not, and if I'm reelected, that will be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And
it's just not true.
He found himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America.
You're also using tariffs, idiot.
Get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to 15.
The CCTV or the CC person for this, like the caption person, held off on typing and skipped over the.
I think it's probably AI and YouTube.
The federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to everyone.
And you undid that by sending $200 billion plus to Ukraine.
And everybody in America. He wants to get rid of
it. Actually, you just increased the deficit.
Actually, Congress did, Brad.
People have for childcare. I'm going to make sure
Yes, but everything comes down to the president, as we see. Like, Congress is responsiable for a big part of all of these things, but it's always blamed on the president. That's the burden of executive office, right?
And give people a break.
Thank you,
it wouldn't be fair if I didn't
Trump. You now have 2 minutes for your closing
hold
statement.
you accountable for every little thing.
Like so many politicians, this man is just.
Well, you're the one that has to Google shit and is wrong all the time.
We want to do that. We want to get rid of this tax, that tax, but he doesn't do anything.
Except on climate change, you weren't wrong on that.
Our
It's a
country
hoax.
unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour.
Don't say that. That's for the private chat.
Fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror. No money.
That's not true.
Again,
that's
of
not
course
true.
not.
It should have never happened.
No, you're wrong. Biden gave them $6 to $10 billion.
We have
which
Palestinians, and
then October 7th happened. So let's call a spade, but that's not inherently true. They weren't broke.
1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world.
I agree with that.
It was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill.
That's fair.
You can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military?
But you did also tell people to inject themselves with bleach.
Soldiers, instead of waiting for 3
So that's your right to try. I mean,
go out and get
That whole
themselves
time is such
fixed
a
up
blur to
and
me. I
readied
barely
up
remember
and take
that.
care of themselves, and they're living
it was a one-off
the
comment.
highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
Can we still use that tagline? Like,
Stay with us because we have.
I guess because it didn't work for him in the last election, he can go back to Make America Great Again.
On CNN.
I've never liked it because I've just thought America's always been great, but
he tried to do what? Make America even greater? I don't even know what his last tagline was.
MEGA.
What are they doing? Is this over now?
It's over, but what the fuck is happening here?
I don't know. Aren't they supposed to shake hands after?
Oh, they fucking hate each other. I bet you that's in the rules.
The president and former presidents.
Fuck Anderson Cooper. We're going to be the ones who fucking tell it like it is. We have analysis. We don't even know stinking CNN.
I mean, I was shocked by the whole thing.
You want to call it a tie? Do you think a tie would be fair?
I think
maybe Trump gets a slight edge.
I give Trump the slight edge because he's not a bumbling moron. And the fact that Joe Biden has been in office for 40 plus years, and that's not a good thing in my opinion. But I have to say, people I think expected Biden to come into this whole thing and do well enough. Whether it's the drugs or whatever, I think people expected him to come in and do well enough because he's shown it before. I don't think that they expected Trump to come in and act completely hinged. Like, he was very subdued in that.
Yeah.
Very subdued. I think the expectation of Trump was that he's going to come in and regardless try to talk over the no mic thing and just get his words out, and that did not happen. He dodged questions and answers, but they both did. I think that I have to give Trump the edge because he seemed completely rational and sane for once.
I think
probably the first time in his life.
Yeah. I think that probably I think for me it was the opposite, that I expected Biden to be just absolutely awful and that he just totally was not awful.
But do you give him the edge because of that?
I don't know. I don't, because it's like you said, it's just like drugs or whatever, 7 days of sleep. But I'm glad that Trump brought up, there's two or three things I think are really important. One of them is Afghanistan, which I'm just like, it's so disgusting what happened. And I'm glad that he brought up, I lost the other thought I had. But there's a few things that I really care about, and I'm glad they brought it. I'm also glad that CNN, the moderators, probably winners of the night. I can't believe they asked hard questions.
That's the biggest shock.
Because
no softballs. No softballs.
No, it's easy to ask Trump about January 6th, right? And a bad thing, it happened. There's no way he could talk himself out of that, right?
We saw he completely kind of went to a non-answer situation.
Yeah. But they asked Biden about immigration and foreign policy because Biden doesn't have a clean record. They pretend like he does on CNN for sure, and it's just not that. And I'm glad they asked him tough questions.
Yeah, I think it was fair on both sides. The January 6th thing, we knew that there were certain questions, I think, coming into this that we were going to receive non-answers on. January 6th was obviously a non-answer thing. And then Biden had, one or two non-answer things. I actually think that they both kind of went non-answer on all of the opiates and all that other stuff. They were both complete non-answers to me, because you're not saying anything that is directly to the people who have addictions and trying to help them with that or whatever. You're going to sit here and talk about your border policy, which on Biden's part is shit. On Trump's part, it didn't matter. Drugs come through the border regardless of your policies. So that's a losing question, I think, for
The drug
both
war
of them.
didn't work.
Right, and it still doesn't, but they keep pushing
Yeah.
this narrative of the drug war while the CIA runs drugs, from Mexico anyway, as we all know. But
I remember the thing, my thought that I lost,
Go
by
ahead.
the way, was
Yeah,
that
take it.
I'm glad that Trump said at the end there that there's like 100 Charlottesvilles happening right now in the United States. And that is absolutely fucking true. And Biden has not said a fucking word about any of it, despite what's been happening in the country. Every weekend, people are beating up Jews in the United States, not because of Israel, but because they are Jewish. And it's about time somebody told him that.
Yeah, you and I differ generally in our opinions of what's happening in Israel and Gaza. But I think our thoughts on it are relatively the same, right? I think we disagree with how it's handled and the funding, because I'm not into that. But overall, I think we agree. I would have to classify those situations where Jews are getting beat up by people who are Palestinian supporters as like a big thing. And I think I said this to you before, like, we had the whole Charlottesville thing and everything else, but and Democrats played that up of like, being anti-Jew and like anti-Semites and like all this other stuff, but they won't say the fucking same thing necessarily. Like, not all Democrats, obviously. Like, there's a contingent of Democrats who were against Charlottesville that aren't against the people who are protesting and beating up Jews in the streets and stuff like that. So I think that's very fair, and that's where I think you and I agree. Like, I think that is wrong, 100%. I truly do. And you can't sit here and say that shit about Charlottesville and then not say the same thing about Palestinian protesters beating up Jews in the street. You just can't do it.
There'd be one thing if they addressed it, but they also did that like talk out of the side, like, we don't like anti-Semitism and we also don't like Islamophobia or whatever. They always do that because
Sure.
that's like their cover. But it's a whole other thing to just completely ignore it. And a Jew had a bloodied face, was beaten in front of a synagogue in Los Angeles, and we've already seen one of these Jewish protesters, or pro-Israel, he was Jewish, get killed by somebody with a megaphone. He knocked him on the ground and he died.
Right.
And
remember they tried to paint that one girl that was wearing like a "Make Bitcoin Great Again" hat, and she got hit with like a fucking bike lock.
Yeah.
And they were trying to paint her to be like some MAGA, like something or other.
That's the Antifa weapon of choice, is the
Right.
bike lock. Yeah, I find it's only going to get worse. First of all, second of all, it's going to be at the convention in Chicago in the middle of the baking hot summer when the Democrats, renominate this guy and, fucking ask him about it. Well, fucking Jake Tapper had these guys out in front of their house protesting the other day as well.
So
Jake Tapper's kids came out and played the national anthem, which is kind of baller.
There's been this like theory or prevailing thought that the reason why the Democrats wanted this debate date and everything was that if Joe Biden fumbles through this, they have time to replace him at the national convention. You're not going to see that now. He performed well enough. I will say that he's definitely going to hold that nomination. They're going to say like, see, he's coherent. He's the greatest president ever. That's what they're going to say. So
yeah, that's what they'll say.
We're due for a Trump-Biden election. I mean, I'm interested to see RFK's like thing. So for those of you who don't know, RFK had a response, I guess it was on Twitter, to the debate. I think he was answering the debate questions via basically like an ask me anything kind of situation while this was going on. Obviously, we did not see that. We took the big debate and not the RFK piece. And I'm interested to see that. I'm gonna probably go back and watch RFK's answers and see like what the deal is, because he has the best shot, I will say, out of any alternative candidate of doing something in this election. He's not going to win. Like, there's no I'm
No,
not
he'll
making
be
any mistake about it.
consequential.
But he might actually be the most consequential candidate since Ross Perot. So I'm interested to see how that happens. I mean, I have a neighbor who he was like talking up RFK pretty hard, and I said, yeah, like I don't mind RFK. I said, but his stance on guns, I is immediately like a non-starter for me. Like he was very like anti 2A, and he was like, "What?" And I explained it to him how RFK was, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I don't think I can vote for him." He's like, "I carry all the time," but I don't think he knew that, and he's an older guy.
He's
But
also anti 1A as well.
right, and so I'm like, I'm not a single issue voter, but I will disqualify you over a single issue. Like I typically vote libertarian, but that's just because I want to push a third party past the 5%. But Chase Oliver
Well,
for the
you're
libertarians,
mentally degraded, so
right?
I understand.
I can't get behind Chase Oliver.
That's
believes,
one I'll never get.
Yeah, I think he was fine as a candidate when he was running for a state office, or I think it was. But I cannot get behind his stances on giving kids like puberty blockers and gender reassignment surgeries and shit like that for children like under 18. I cannot stand behind that stance. I just can't.
That whole thing, like the only way that any of this stuff gets better is through lawsuits, unfortunately. And so you're just going to have a lot of kids suing a lot of hospitals, just like you're going to have a lot of people suing over their hiring practices related to DEI and stuff like that.
You're seeing
it gets
though.
settled in the courts. Yeah,
there
you
are people coming out and testifying, I believe, before Congress that they're a detransitioner and stuff like that. And all of those videos get taken offline. Like
they do.
They get taken down. There are a lot of people out there who are detransitioning, and I just saw one the other day. This girl had said that she told her parents that she was a boy and thought she was a boy and all this other stuff. So she went through all of this process and then detransitioned, and the doctors said, "Oh, well, like you feel like you're a boy, so you're a boy," and then went and told her parents that you can either have a daughter who commits suicide, or you can have a transgender
and they do that,
boy. And
that's the tactic.
And the parents were like, "Oh, well, I don't want my kid to die," so they went through with it. And then the kid is like, "Well, now I'm detransitioning," and like said, "I can't." She said, "I can't blame my parents because they did what they felt was best for me, but it was not right for me." Ultimately,
you know what, Brad, I feel bad for those people, and unfortunately everybody is going to have to suffer. It's going to have to be women's sports where guys get to do it as well. We're just in this moment. We're coming out of a moment, actually, with a lot of this shit. But people are going to have to suffer. They're going to have to sue. And that's the only way you're really going to change what's going on right now. But you know what? Bigger topic. I probably shouldn't get into it tonight.
There wasn't any questions about that kind of situation, because that's kind of like I feel like a big topic that happens at least through the culture war of politics.
I think it's a right-wing thing more, and maybe they just aren't tuned into it, because they also didn't ask anything about, like, I don't know, the DOJ, Biden's DOJ,
Right.
like investigating parents at school meetings or whatever.
They harp on like the topics that are just the constant like 5 things, right? There's there's 3 to 5 topics that every election, it's on the ballot. It's on the ballot. You have to vote because of these topics.
They brought up climate change. Nobody gives a fuck about climate change. It's like the last thing anybody cares about. They rank it at like 1%. So
right, that's true. And because they do these polls about the topics that people care about, and you're right, that was low.
I think it was the last thing on the list.
I think Israel war was actually
Was
pretty
low.
low as well. It was
Yeah.
like 15th or something on the list, or
Because
like
nobody
11th.
cares. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm saying people live their lives in the United States and they have a set of things that they care about, and it's remarkably all about where they live.
Right. And the economy is typically, I think, number one on
It ought
everybody's
to be.
list.
Yeah.
Is
I
the
think
economy.
immigration's probably number one now, but
here we see all these articles of economists being like, well, here's why people are wrong about the economy and that we actually have a good economy. We don't. Regular citizens see the economy as things that they're able to purchase. The economy itself is actually built upon all of these large corporations and their ability to have their earnings potential and stuff like that reflected in the stock market. Not everybody is invested in the stock market. The majority of people don't have great investments in the stock market. They have their 401ks, like all those stuff, which are almost like guaranteed returns. But then you have people who actually invest in the stock market. That's what the economy actually is in reality, but that's what it is according to the government and to economists.
In very technical
right.
ways,
but in
yes.
reality, it's the purchasing power of the dollar, which is very low right now. And that's what people fucking care about. And they kind of didn't really talk about it too much in this other than inflation. And then, Joe Biden saying, well, we inherited like a bad economy, all these lost jobs, but refused to accept that that was part of COVID and that was not inherently Donald Trump's fault. I mean, Donald Trump did shut down the economy, which was a horrible idea. Biden persisted in shutting down the economy and made it worse. So at the end of the day, because I know we're trying to wrap this up, we all fucking lose. We all lose with this election. We all lose in general because they don't care about regular people when it comes to the economy. So when they talk about economy, it's large corporations and fucking Wall Street. It has nothing to do with actual individuals.
Yeah, and also, if the debate was 4 hours long between two 39-year-old men,
they still wouldn't talk about this.
You would ask them why are you draining the petroleum reserve, things like that, and it's just never going to be that.
Though. I don't think they would. Know. And Biden is draining the petroleum reserve. Have you noticed gas prices are going down?
Yep. On that note, I want to get you tucked away to bed because it's pretty late for you. I'm gonna go wash my brain out with something after all that.
Yeah.
This was actually kind of cool. Yeah, I enjoyed this.
I would say I'm going to go watch something nonsensical, but I already watched something nonsensical in the debate, so...
True
it's
that.
Fine. No, I did enjoy this. I thought it was interesting and fun. It wasn't as unhinged as I thought it would be, so I thought there would be more, comedic opportunities, I guess, to make fun of them, but they were both pretty coherent, so...
Also, Trump called Biden a Palestinian.
Yeah.
Just want to bring that back.
I think the funniest part of which you missed was when he called him a Manchurian candidate.
That is a pretty...
I'm really excited for you to go back and watch because I know that
I'll
you
watch
do.
that
you go back and listen and watch our podcast. I'm really excited for you to go back and watch that part because that's
fantastic.
Pretty fucking funny.
So I'll see if I can get this up, and I honestly, if you're listening to this podcast and if you hated it, I'm sorry. We've never done anything where we talk over another voice like that before, so we usually just talk over each other's voices. But if you hated it was an experiment. If you liked it, I guess let us know. I'm open to suggestions.
The eleadmoment@gmail.com. Let us know.
Seriously, I don't know how it's going to come out.
Or check us out on socials. El Masanary Moment on Instagram.
Brad is doing yeoman's work? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, as long as I don't have to edit any video myself.
Fucking AI, bud. Okay, you have a good night, and I will talk to you later.
All right, have a good night, buddy.